This dude doesn't know what he is into until he bumps into this hot lady and finds out that he is into MILFs. So this story is a love story of a 23 years old boy with a 45-year-old hot MILF. The movie starts with Celine going through a pair of books when she gets visited by her friend, whom she sells a piece of art. We also meet Celine's daughter, Izzy, and they talk about how she's into girl bands now and no longer a boy band called August Moon. We find out that Izzy's going to Coachella with her dad, who is Celine's ex-husband, and Celine is planning on going on a camping trip by herself. We cut to Celine driving Izzy and her friends to Daniel, her ex-husband's house. They meet Daniel and his new wife, Eva. Daniel tries to invite Celine for dinner and a board game, but Celine is unimpressed and politely declines. She drives back home and starts packing for her trip, but gets interrupted by Daniel, who tells her that he has a work emergency and asks her to take Izzy and her friends to Coachella instead. Celine angrily agrees. They get to Coachella and the kids promptly abandon Celine. Celine goes to a VIP lounge where she meets a super fan of the band August Moon. The fan freaks her out because the woman looks like she's 30 and she's still mooning over a boy band, pun intended. Celine asks for directions to the bathroom. She notices a nice trailer and assumes it's a bathroom. She goes in, knocks on the bathroom door, and an attractive young guy pops out. Look at him. He looks like when a Greek god has a baby with Justin Bieber. He even has a British accent. Way to make every other guy on earth question their looks. So the guy notices Celine and he's a little surprised. She moves past him and goes into the bathroom. When she comes back, he's just sitting there and she's like, "What are you, a pervert?" He reveals that he's the owner of the trailer and he's Hayes Campbell, lead singer of the band August Moon. Celine is confused and embarrassed and tries to excuse herself, but Hayes is nice and he offers her a drink. They get to talking and Celine tells him that her daughter is no longer an August Moon fan. Hayes laughs and they start hitting it off. It also comes up that Celine is divorced and you can see the spark in his eyes. They get interrupted by Hayes' crew members who start putting clothes on him. Hayes takes off their shirt, which makes Celine blush. She excuses herself from the trailer and goes back to the VIP lounge, texting Izzy to come for their scheduled August Moon meet and greet as Hayes and the rest of the band come upstage and sit at a panel. Izzy and her friends show up and they head up to panels and start getting autographs. And then Hayes asks Celine for her name, while Izzy's friend Zeke tells Hayes that Celine has an art store in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. And we find out Hayes is an art lover. The band gets called to go on stage. We cut to the band performing. Then they switch up the song last minute to a song called Closer. And Celine feels like the song is about her because Hayes was looking at her the whole time. The scene arrives on Celine celebrating her 40th birthday, and her friends are asking how it feels to be 40. Also, she gets approached by a bunch of older guys, and they suck. There's this guy who's still in love with his ex-wife, and this other guy who thinks having pets is the same thing as having kids. We cut to Celine in her office, and her receptionist tells her excitedly that someone is looking for her, and behold, it's Hayes Campbell. He tells her that he has a new house in London and he wants to decorate it with a bunch of art. So Celine shows him around her shop and he ends up buying her art collection because he's such an art lover. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of paparazzi outside the shop and it's really annoying. Hayes asks if there's any more art for him to see, and Celine decides to take him to a warehouse. They get into Celine's car, Hayes takes down the seat, and they drive past the paparazzi. They get to the warehouse, and Celine shows him more art. She also tells Hayes she was an art history major, and he tells her that he auditioned to be in the band, and he got the part, and that things would have gone differently if he'd gotten another part. He also tells her he likes how they met, that they should go grab a bite to eat, and that he wants to get to know her better. She takes him to her house because he's a superstar, so the paparazzi are going to be crazy if he's seen in any restaurant. Hayes tells her about his parents. They separated when he was a kid, his mom remarried, and his dad started taking interest in him when he became a superstar, so he doesn't trust people. Celine makes him a sandwich and tells him about her history with Daniel. They met when she was fresh out of college, they got married, had Izzy, then he started doing really well at work, and he started cheating on her with a junior associate called Eva, and he was twice her age. Celine says she offered to look past it, but Daniel says he was in love with her, so they got a divorce. The phone rings. Celine goes to answer it. Hayes notices a piano and starts playing. Celine comes back and they start kissing. It's extremely steamy. Then Celine says she's too old for him and they kiss again. Then she says she could be his mother. They kiss again. Soon she pulls away and says Hayes should go back to his hotel. Hayes says okay, but leaves his watch behind. Izzy comes back home, notices Celine looking flustered and goes to pack because she's going to summer camp. Celine notices Hayes' watch but chooses to drive Izzy to camp. She drops her off and Izzy tells her to have fun this summer. Celine goes home and starts reading a book. I guess that's her idea of fun. She gets a text from Hayes, who got her number from her store's invoice. He tells her he can't stop thinking about their kiss and invites her to a show in New York. She goes to his hotel in New York, walks into his room, and reveals that she's wearing a really steamy dress underneath. So they finally do it, and it's passionate. And then they start trading stories and ordering room service. Hayes invites her on his tour in Europe, and she reluctantly agrees on the condition that he introduce her as his art consultant. So cue the Europe montage. They go on flights, they do it on the beach, they do it in a hotel, they do it everywhere. They go to Paris and Hayes kisses her in public, unknown to them. Their pictures are being taken and Hayes invites her to his rented home in the south of France. Celine even gets the stink eye from one of Hayes' team. At home, all the other girls are wearing bikinis and whatnot, but Celine is shy because she's not exactly as perky as they are. She dresses in thick overalls and she notices that all the other girls are younger than her. They're joined by Hayes and his co-band member, Ollie, who is just a jerk. Ollie reveals that the song Closer they did on stage in Coachella was just a bit that they do to get girls, and Celine was thinking it was all about her. Also turns out, he's into older chicks. Celine is embarrassed and goes back to the room and starts packing. Hayes tries to explain to her, but she calls off their relationship and says she's going back to LA. Hayes tells her that their being together has made him happy and has meant the world to him, and he wonders if she feels the same way, but she doesn't reply. Hayes lives. Celine goes back home to LA. Not long after Daniel and Eva come over and Daniel has bought Izzy a car for her birthday, Celine thinks it is a little much. Daniel says he heard it through the grapevine that she was seen in Paris kissing Hayes Campbell from August Moon, and he tells her it would be crazy for a 40-year-old woman to be dating a 24-year-old famous pop star. Celine tells him she agrees, but she's not going to take dating advice from him. Daniel leaves to take pictures of the car, and Eva comes to tell Celine that she's leaving Daniel. Then Celine's friend comes over and she tells her all about Europe and the guy she was with, but she doesn't tell her it's Hayes Campbell. A little bit after that, Celine receives a text from Hayes telling her to stay off the internet. On her way to pick up Izzy from camp, she receives a bunch of texts from a bunch of people. The internet has found out about their relationship. In the camp, a lot of people give her the stink eye, a guy even asks for a selfie, and one woman says her daughter has been crying because of her. It's a whole thing. Then she and Izzy get to talking, and Izzy is really sad she didn't tell her about everything, but they hug it out, and then Izzy asks her why she left Hayes, and Celine doesn't have an answer. She goes and meets Hayes at his studio in LA. He notices her and tells everyone to leave the room. Celine apologizes and tells him she feels the same way and says it doesn't have to end. So they make up and decide to have their relationship in the open. There's a flood of paparazzi even outside Celine's home. The internet is really not in favor of their relationship. Daniel comes over and he's not happy that Hayes is dating his ex-wife. He complains to Celine that this isn't a good situation for Izzy. It's obviously motivated by jealousy, and Celine tells him to shove it. Her exact words were, "Boy, if you don't get your cheating behind, get out of here." But things get really intense. Izzy gets bullied at school. Girls are asking her to get a picture of Hayes' genitals, and a guy she has a crush on tells her to tell her mom he'll be turning 18 soon. Celine even reads the comments online, and they're all just terrible. She meets up with Hayes at the airport, and she tells him they can't be together, that it's too hard on Izzy, and Hayes even says he can quit the band, but she says no and tells him goodbye. She goes back home, and Hayes meets her outside her home, and he tells her he loves her, and she says she loves him too. They share one last kiss. He tells her she should reconsider the whole thing 5 years from now. When Izzy is out of school, the band is no longer together, and he's less famous. She says no and tells him to live a full life. 5 years later, Izzy is in Chicago and living a good life. Celine goes through her TV and she sees Hayes singing a song about lost love on the Graham Norton show. And he confesses that he's going on a break and visiting LA. There's someone he would like to see. We cut to Celine being in her shop and her office, and then she hears a familiar voice and goes to see who it is. It's Hayes Campbell. Although he looks a bit older, but she has stayed the same. The moral of the story is, if you are into MILFs, no worries. When you get older, you can still have them because basically, they age slower than you. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more MILFix stories. See you soon.